We've been on vacation, folks, but we're back now, so lock up your kids.
And your
Welcome
wives.
to episode 7 of Recontact. We're going to be talking today about duplicate content, for which there is a massive list of possible causes. And I think we're going to focus on the ones that are the most common. Since WordPress is a very common site platform, and other CMS platforms are also somewhat guilty of this, we're going to kind of focus on the three biggest ones that I see: tags, categories, and on-site search. First of all, this is my personal opinion. I don't believe in using tags, period. I just disable them, and I don't even install them. But categories, particularly if you're running an e-commerce function, you probably want to have categories. Or if you have a blog that is dealing in a variety of topics, you're going to want to use categories. So you're going to have duplicate content unless you get in there and do some modifications. Out of the box, WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal are all going to generate duplicate content pages if you're using categories or tags.
Right.
And if you have an on-site search, where you can search on-site for a particular post or author or whatever, you're also going to kick up duplicate content. And once those things are generated, if Google can see them, they're going to show up as duplicate content. Ought to back up for a minute and dispel one myth that seems to exist. People keep referring to the duplicate content penalty. There is no such thing, okay? What you get is an effect where if Google sees 3 pages, 3 different URLs that happen to show the same page, they're going to usually decide which one is the most appropriate and show that one in the SERPs and ignore the other 2. But they don't always get it right. And if it's a really widespread problem on a site, you've got a site that has 1,000 pages, but you've got 55,000 in the index because of duplicate content, they may just decide to take them all out of the SERPs and not display any of them. I've seen it happen only once. I've heard of a couple of other instances. But the bottom line is, it's hurting you anyway, because what duplicate content does, one thing it does for you is it is eating up your crawl budget. Google's going to arrive at every site and spend a certain amount of time crawling and go to a certain depth. And if they're coming, they're going to pay attention to the pages that seem the most appropriate and that seem the most recently updated or perhaps recently published. So if you have 1,000 pages and they're hitting 500 pages every visit, believe me, that doesn't mean that in 2 visits they're going to index your site. They probably won't index your whole site in 45 visits because they're going to repeat crawl on a lot of those pages. So if those pages are duplicate content, you may be crawling the same page 4, 5, 10 times, and that means that there's 4, 5, or 10 other pages that aren't going to get crawled. So that means you're not going to be able to rank, you're not going to be able to gain traffic, you're not going to show up in the search for those pages that didn't get crawled. So that's the biggest effect that I see is the effect to your crawl budget. So having dispelled that myth, remember, there's no such thing as a duplicate content penalty. What there is the ability for unique content to rank better, and the possibility of duplicate content being ignored. But the biggest impact it's going to have on you is when it just destroys your crawl budget and keeps you from even getting your pages, which may be more important, even seen.
Agreed.
And I didn't want to do all talking, so I'll throw it over to you.
Well, we're talking about accidental ways of creating duplicate content on your own website. Then the other side of that coin is when you actually pay someone to create duplicate content for you because you've signed on with a service without properly understanding what they offer or how they're going to go about doing it. for example, I know of at least one service in the jewelry industry that offers to write content for you every month for a small $60 a month fee, and they'll update your blog for you every time they write the blog post, and they promise to only work for you in a certain region. So if you're in Detroit, they won't do it for any other jewelry stores in Detroit, but they may do for one, for Chicago or whatever, or Cincinnati,
The
which is
same
fine,
content.
but it's
Yeah.
the exact same content. So they're blasting it out at the same time on the same day to everybody. I did a quick search and I found no less than 100 examples of them selling this service. Well, $60 a month times 100, that's $6 grand a month they're getting paid to write basically one blog post. That's not a bad gig if you can get it. The other side of that coin is they're not putting it on your blog. What they're doing is they're creating a subdomain off of their own website, and it's myjewelrystore.theirwebsite.com, somebody else's jewelrystore.theirwebsite.com, and that's where all the blogs sit, and you link with your website to the blog. So not only are you running duplicate content, you're linking to duplicate content that's not even on your website. And you're paying for the service. And because it's all automated on their end, they're also turning around and blasting it out on social media, on Facebook and Twitter and all that other stuff. But it's just 100 copies of the exact same thing. And as anything other than filler, it is totally worthless for you. It's not
Oh,
going to help you rank
you're,
well. It's not
you're
going to do
never going to
anything
rank.
for you.
No.
It's, I would be shocked if Google even cared after a certain point, because it starts to look really, really like a link scheme.
And to me, that is a sort of instance in which Google would be totally justified in simply saying all versions or all instances of this page of content
Yeah.
are out of play. They're not going to go in the search.
Then yeah, exactly. And you're going to be sitting there wondering, well, I'm paying these guys $60 a month to write my blog posts, and sure they are, but you might as well just take that money and set it on fire, because it's
Yep.
certainly not helping you.
And it can be, it's not as malicious, but it can also be a similar effect if you've got aggregators out there scraping your content,
Mm-hmm.
and they're taking content, good unique content that you generated, put up on your blog, and then they put the copy up on their blog. And some of those guys don't just put it on their blog.
Yeah.
They may sell that to somebody else, or they may be actually letting other aggregators use their content, so your scrape is getting scraped.
Yeah.
So you're not going to rank because you're competing with various instances. So it's something you need to go
If you
ahead.
do find yourself being scraped and you're running a WordPress site, there are plugins, because these people are scraping you through your RSS feed 99% of the time. There are plugins that will tag a link back to your website so that it says, as originally found on, and then it has your website and a link back to you. That way, when their automated feed updates, at least you're getting linked back to, and Google's being given at least a clue that you have been scraped and you are the original source of the content, not the guy that scraped you.
And if you've got affiliates out there that are using some of your content, you can also, if you can get them to put a canonical tag on. If, for instance, if you have content with categories, for instance, you may have categories on your site, so you're going to have duplicate content. But if you properly implement canonical tags, Google is pretty good now compared to 3 or 4 years ago. They were pretty sucky at it. But these days, they're pretty good at normally finding the original or the more appropriate version. But they don't always get it right.
Right.
And they don't mind the help. So canonical tags are the way to go.
That and there are people out there who will recommend you just simply no index your category pages.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of that myself.
Yeah,
I
I don't either.
If you write a good quality intro to that category at the top of your category page, you're going to have a lot less of an issue. if anything, you may find that your category pages start to rank well.
I have actually seen one client whose category page outranked a very nice piece of integrated content that was drawing in the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
But the category page outranked it.
Yep.
And she was upset. I'm saying, I'm sorry you're upset, but you really shouldn't be.
That's what it is.
You're getting the traffic and you're getting the links, and just don't bitch about sour soup here.
Yeah.
You're better off than the other guy.
That's not the page we want to rank. We want this other page to rank. It's like, well, just be happy you're getting the traffic.
Exactly. Rank doesn't buy anything from you. Users buy things.
Yeah. So
okay, the other one, on-site search results.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are tricky. I normally try to avoid Google even seeing those. And I say normally because it's not always the case. But typically, I'll just no index, no follow those. Sometimes I will no index follow categories. I very rarely anymore. I have tried no index, no follow and decided it was a bad move and went back on it. And tags, like I said, if you've got a CMS, you should not be running tags, in my opinion. No. There's no SEO advantage to it whatsoever, and a lot of downsides.
There were some, at one point, maybe even still in some categories, there are some end user benefit to them, especially if you're running tag clouds. And you run a lot of different types of content on your website. There's something to be said for the end user, finding some advantage in that. But the trick then is to just simply make sure that you're properly no indexing your tag pages, because they will, more than anything else, tag pages will eat up your crawl budget.
Oh, big time. Yeah, because if you, especially people that go kind of nuts, they'll put up a post on their blog and they'll put 6 tags on it.
Only 6. I've seen them with as many as 12, 14, 20.
Sure, yeah. So there, right off the bat, you've got 7 instances of that page.
Yeah.
Immediately. Now, if you've got 1,000 pages on your site, it's not uncommon to find 50, 60, 80,000 pages in the index. And you can do a site search, a site colon, and then your domain on Google, and it'll give you a quick indicator. If you know you have 250 pages on your blog, and Google says you've got 13,000 and some, you've got duplicate content.
Yeah.
Now you got to dig into it and find out where it is and fix it. And like I said, there's not a penalty, but there is the effect of a penalty because you feel it in your crawl budget, and it can hurt your ability to rank some pages.
Exactly.
Particularly a CMS, WordPress particularly, I have seen 2 different plugins, I'm not going to name them, that actually, even though the person had their blog set up right, they installed this plugin and it suddenly enabled duplicate content. So this is something that, kind of like checking your messages in Search Console, this is something you should periodically check. Look and see, do a site colon search and see what you've got showing up in Google. That's not a definitively accurate number. It's an approximation. But like I say, if you know you've got 186 posts and it says you got 13,000 in the index, you have a problem and you need to look at it. Yeah. And that can happen very quickly. The other thing is, take a look at if you're generating a sitemap, make sure that you're generating the pages that you want in that sitemap. Because I've seen people actually think that they had tags or categories under control, excuse me, but they didn't exclude them from their sitemap generator.
Right.
So they were just plugging them right back in again. And they couldn't figure out why their index count was going up. So it's the kind of thing you need to watch, because it does have a detrimental effect. Also, if you're in a service like Steve was talking about, if you've got somebody generating content for you, it's always a good idea. If you think that it's a situation where they might be selling that content to you and 12 other people, you probably want to wait a week or two, but then go through Copyscape.
Yeah.
You know, for like $20, you get. I cannot go through the number of Copyscape searches in a month that I get for $20. It's just phenomenal. And you can just grab a paragraph or a couple of sentences or the whole damn thing and drop it into Copyscape. It'll show you every place it's appearing on the web in their index. That's why they give it a week or two to make sure that the page had a chance to get indexed. Don't the minute she sends it over there, don't run it assuming it's been online already. It may have been, it may not be. So, you know, there's two quick checks you can do there. The site colon and Copyscape that can help you detect the stuff early on, but don't wait 4 months between checks.
No, and it doesn't hurt to spot check old content every now and then either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, make sure you're not getting scraped, even though it's 100% original and unique that you wrote it yourself. Somebody may have scraped it. Now, I've had that happen to me myself many times and to several clients. I got a guy right now in Asia, in Southeast Asia, that is running a clone copy of my site. I changed the punctuation, and the next day it's changed on his site.
I love it. Is he hot linking back to your images, or is he at least copying those over as well?
He thought he was. Then he got some rather obscene pictures popped up on his site one day. He stopped doing that.
Nice. I like doing that to people.
Oh yeah, well, the fact that I got the image that I used, remember Kermit, the goatee picture? Yeah, that's the one he got on his front page.
Oh, that was tame. That was tame.
I figured using a puppet was, a halfway.
I've used everything from FBI legal notices to, NSA, and every once in a while we'll throw in some porn, but it's more fun to just throw in, visitors to this site have been logged by the FBI as,
Never tried that one. That does sound like fun.
That one's kind of fun too. So, but so duplicate content, it's an issue. It's not a penalty. It can't keep you from doing as well as you'd like to do in the search results simply because of the overwhelming amount that Google has to sift through. They're going to have to pick a winner. I almost guarantee it'll never be the guy that actually wrote it. So keep an eye on your website.
Yeah, don't assume that the fact that you published on April 12th and it showed up on their site on April 29th is going to ensure that Google's going to recognize you as the original source. That rarely happens. If it happens 3 years apart, you got a better chance, but it's still not solid. Mm-hmm. But the date is not going to differentiate enough to depend upon.
No.
That's not all I got.
Well, that was good enough for me. I'll be sure to check my content because I never can trust the service I use for my content.
Oh, you're such a bitch.
You know how it is.
Yeah, it's hard to find good help. As always, folks, we really love to see your questions. We promise we're not going to go on another 3-month vacation anytime soon. At least not both of us at the same time. Yeah. So, but fishing season is coming along, so we might disappear for a week.
I may be in Florida in March, so.
Oh, you going down and hit the Gulf?
Yeah, I think so.
Gulf or West Coast or East Coast, rather?
Oh, Gulf. East Coast is fine, but Gulf is more fun.
I tell you, but I tell you what, they're pulling in some nice big fish out there towards the Bahamas, off the East Coast, which has absolutely nothing to do with Mentors on Tap. But we appreciate you folks showing up, and we would appreciate getting your questions, your comments.
Marketing, business, fishing.
There you go.
Scotch.
Whatever
you have a question on, I'm sure we'll figure out the answer.
Unless you happen to be a fan of blended Scotch, in which case don't call it.
All right, everybody. Thanks.